Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Gaerea, Mirage, out September 23rd on Season of Mist. The album has 8 tracks, 53 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are a Portuguese black metal band. Now this record has incredible atmospheric elements, but they don't drive the experience. They're just part of the sonic output that the album puts forward. But when you have these elements working so well and so intertwined with one another, what you create is a journey into pure darkness. This record just takes you in, it has a hold of you, and it becomes more part of who you are with every passing song. Think about the record as you would a spider web. Once you get tangled in a spider web, the more you move, the more you try to get freed from it, the more tangled you've become. And this record has that ability. Each song is a piece of that spider web. So the more that you navigate down the journey of listening to this album, going from the first to the last song, the more intertwined with the record you've become, until you lose track of where you're going, where you are, because you're just completely engulfed by the experience that it offers. Incredible design from that point of view. It feels like you're getting more out of the album with each and every passing song. And while there are a lot of similarities from track to track that allows them to create a red line from start to finish, the differences that emerge from each and every single song allow you to feel a sense of rebirth with every step, with every track that comes your way. As far as the overall sound experience, the production is excellent. The sound is excellent. It really defines what the album is all about. That difference that you get from the atmospheric side of the record to the more driven and aggressive and intensive side of the record, and then how those two worlds come together and create almost this haze that makes it very difficult to tell which one is driving the other. Only great production allows an album to sound as good as this one does, and allows an album to have this sort of a dynamic feel between two different elements that had sometimes kind of become one of the same. So listening to this record, it really is a pleasure. You're able to tell everything apart. You're able to tell all of the different pieces that make up the composition of the songs. The songwriting throughout the entire album is phenomenal. This is one of those records that just doesn't have any weaknesses. It doesn't matter how you look at it. You can digest this record, you can digest its sound from start to finish, you can pick songs out of random. You're always going to get what the album has in store for you. You're always going to get the most out of this record, out of its songs, regardless of how you approach it. And that comes down to that production, that comes down to that quality of sound that just permeates across each and every single song. And then within that sound, you obviously have elements that jump out into the forefront in terms of the impact that they create. I like the atmospheric nuances that the record has because it doesn't depend solely on them to create more of an organic drive within the record. They're there as the bass is, as the guitars are, as the drums are. It's almost like another instrument. It's just another element in the overall creation that they put together. But within the sound, you definitely look at drums, at guitars, as maybe two of the main cornerstones that allow the album to have the right shape, the right form, the right foundation to be as strong as it is. The drums on this record are incredible. I mean, bulldozing over you, but they don't take over control of the track. And what I mean by that is that you still feel the power of the guitars. You still feel the melodic undertones of the guitars. You still feel the impact of the vocals onto the tracks. You still feel those elements of atmosphere that are intertwined with the creation of the songs coming from within the tracks themselves. So considering how heavy, how powerful on a consistent basis the drums are from start to finish, being able to put them together in a way that you feel their power, that you feel their strength, but they don't take anything away from anything else, they don't wash anything away from anything else, it's really incredible. And that is one of the points that gives strength to the overall experience of listening to this record. Now, the guitars have two different worlds on this album. They create a lot of drive. This is a record that sometimes the guitar sound feels very dark, very uneasy. It cuts like a knife, it drives through, it has this piercing element to it, and it almost makes you shiver in terms of how it makes you feel, in terms of how it sounds and the impact that it has. but it also has melody. The guitars on this album have a lot of melodic undertones to them. And the way they intertwined those melodic undertones into that more driven, shivering guitar sound allows the guitars overall to have more substance, to have more texture, to not be one-dimensional. This is not one of those records that the guitars always feel like they're doing the exact same thing, coming across in the exact same way from start to finish. There are undertones, there is texture, there is substance, there are layers to the guitar sound throughout the entire record. And that is another piece of the puzzle that makes the sound experience so strong. But it all goes down to the production. It all comes down to the overall feel and design that they wanted. Having these elements recorded properly, being put together properly in a way that you get the most out of each and every single one of them without allowing them to completely erase everything around them is the strength of this record. Vocally, the album is consistent. You feel like it stays within the pocket, it stays within its lane from start to finish. Perhaps one of the elements that creates some balance throughout the entire album. Because this album has a lot of volatility, not necessarily from track to track, but within the tracks themselves, within the construction of the songs. The dynamic movements that the tracks offer are very volatile, feel very volatile at times. But keeping the vocals grounded, keeping them consistent, keeping them as aggressive, as direct as they need to be, allows the record to also feel more together, to feel more robust, to feel more balanced, to feel more cohesive. There are some nuances here and there. There are some changes within that vocal range, within their vocal approach, depending on what the song, on what the mood of the song calls for, but they're very sporadic. Now, they work well because they're sporadic, so when they happen, you feel a drop, normally in the atmosphere. The change in that vocal style, the change in that vocal approach impacts the atmosphere, the mood of the song directly. And because it's not happening constantly, it has even a bigger impact on how you're going to perceive the vocals and the album itself. Now, these guys have been getting better and better with every single album. This is their best album to date when you consider everything that they've put forward. The sound, the production, the artwork, the lyrical content, the vocals, guitars, drums. They are one of those bands that they're able to get better and better with every record, not changing their DNA completely, but adding small new elements to tweak here and there in order for the overall experience to become better defined, in order for them to finally start to realize what exactly do they want out of their sound, what do they want their DNA to be. Sometimes it takes time. These guys have done it in a very short period of time. And this record, it might be the album where finally everything has come full circle. They finally have full grasp of themselves, of their sound, of what they want to do, and they create that exact signature approach that's going to be their trademark going forward. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Memoir. This is the opening track. There is no better song on this record to opening up an album like this. It has an incredible melodic, atmospheric, haunting, shivering start. It's so stripped down, it's so bare bones, but then you start to see the layers getting added upon it. So it's only a matter of time before the aggression, before the intensity kicks in. But the fact that you go through this crossing of the desert, that you go through this minimalistic approach at the start, allows you to better feel introduced to the album. It allows you to better understand where this album is taking you. So it doesn't hit you immediately hard with the opening track. It allows you to ease yourself in. It almost gives you a false sense of comfort. And then when you're already in there and these layers are getting added, once the song blossoms into something heavier, more driven, more powerful, with the guitars and drums together really pushing you forward, you're better prepared for it because you took the right steps in order to get to that point, in order to reach that climax. This is a very aggressive song. It has great movement. Once it gets going, it doesn't really stop. There are a few breaks here and there outside of that intro, but it's a song that overall, when you get to the end of it, you remember two things: how slow it built up, and then how fast and how driven it got. Next, you have Deluge, a sinister, darker sounding song. Now, this track has interesting elements because it feels more methodic at times. and what it loses in intensity, it gains in melody, it gains in atmosphere, it gains in other places. So it loses some in order to gain some. But that doesn't mean that the song is going to be methodic from start to finish. No, it still has bursts of intensity, it still has bursts of aggression, it still feels very driven at times. It's just not consistent in anything that it offers. It has different momentums, it has different timings, and you're going to go through all of those timings, and you're going to have different experiences in terms of what you're going to take from the track. So depending on where you gravitate towards, depending on what portion of the song you hold on to, the song at the end is going to feel different depending on who you are. Some people will say, well, this was a very methodic track. Some people will say this was a very driven with bursts of energy style song. It has both worlds. It has two worlds coexisting with one. So it really comes down to the listener. So it's a song that becomes a perception of who is listening to, not necessarily what is being put right in front of you. Last but not least, Laude. This is the last song on the record. It's a great track because it offers elements of the entire record put into one song. It's also, in my opinion, the most melodic, the most atmospheric, and definitely the most diverse song that the album offers. It has movement, and a lot of the movement within this track is not really defined by the sound or the experience that comes from it, but rather by the vocal tone, by the vocal approach, and overall vocal range. So using a different element to create volatility instead of creating more methodic moments, more fast moments. No, the song has a different way to unbalance itself, but at the same time still feeling very connected. I just love the atmospheric nuances that the song brings. I love the melodic nature of the track through and through. It matches so well with everything that you experience on this record. When you think about this album and you think of everything that you took from each and every single song, this closing track has small little pieces of that. And it's important when you have an album that you want to give the listener almost a conclusion to that album, to that experience, considering how good the opening track is and how it opens the book. When you close the book, you have to give the album a sense of finality. What have I taken from this experience? What have I taken from this journey? This song is exactly that, is the conclusion. It tells you everything that you experience. It puts it perhaps a little bit more in a simplistic way, so it's easier for you to understand exactly what each step before you got there was all about, but it's beautiful because of it. It's beautiful because it rounds up a beautiful album. This is the Gaerea with Mirage, out September 23rd on Season of Mist. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.